Hey guys, Captain Matt with the Lighting Trade School podcast. I'm here with my buddies Shane Glow Daddy Duffy and our mentor Nate the Illuminator Mullen. Boys, how are we doing today? The end of May.
Well, I'd like to say if I was doing any better, Matt, my name would be Matt.
Fair enough.
I
If I
would
was
con-
doing and if I was doing any worse, my name would be Shane.
I'm gonna start calling myself Captain Glow when I'm doing good.
Do it up.
All is good. It's been a while since we've all three been back on the podcast.
Yeah, Nate, where you been? It's been maybe 2-3 weeks. What's been up?
Holy shit. It's been a goddamn whirlwind for me. I mean, there's not enough time in the day between doing a 5-day advanced university. I went to Minnesota for 4 days, 5 days, and then just preparation, trying to plan for these different events and, just doing what I do every day. So,
Minnesota was a vacation.
no, it was to go up and train a specific company up in Minnesota.
Oh wow,
So yeah, but
that's awesome.
never really spent any time in Minnesota. So well,
All
you're
right,
gonna
so
start.
Nate was about to start talking. He was just saying that he was in Minnesota training a lighting company, and he just keeps dropping out. So we're gonna try with no video for Nate. But Nate, you were about to tell us about Minnesota. Like all we heard was like, "I've never been there," and then we lost you. So why don't you tell us about Minnesota?
Yeah, so I've really only flown in and out of Minneapolis before, so I've never got to explore the state of Minnesota, if you will. So I was really they call it the 10,000 lakes or the Great Lakes or 10,000 land of the lakes or whatever they call it. Yeah, there is water everywhere, but I was blown away. So when I was up there last week, the trees are absolutely magnificent. The most beautiful trees I think I've ever seen. Very conducive to outdoor lighting, very tall. I mean, like the shortest tree is like 60 feet, right? So we went out and we did our first demo, and the first question was, "Hey, hope you brought some like 7, 8, 10 watt bulbs because the trees are so big." And of course, I only bring 4 watt bulbs because that's my main light bulb that I use in the demos. And we had demos up there. I pre-sent demo lights, 100 lights to the contractor, and we lit up all these 60, 80 foot high trees, and they were blown away that the light was able to go from ground, right, all the way up through and have light trespass, if you will, all the way to the top. Now, the trees were airy, forget what kind of trees they were, but literally, absolutely gorgeous trees. And they had just got their leaves within the last couple weeks. So it was really cool to where when you reckon
Wow, that's really awesome. I would love to see those trees. I hope that you actually took some pictures and stuff to share with me and
we
Shane so
don't
that we
have
can
natural
see it.
landscape.
Okay.
So I don't know what just happened there, but me living in California, we have no natural landscape. Everything is imported and planted. And when you live in Minnesota, you buy a home, you got trees already on the property. It's pretty badass.
Pretty badass. Awesome. I don't know if that's me. I swear, if it's not Nate that's laggy, it goes to me. Like it just picks one of us and throws a lag on one of us. But yeah, so Minnesota, lots of water, and that actually reminds me of. I guess I've been working with a guy, and he's doing a lighting job right on the ocean, the coast. Obviously, it's the East Coast. But I know I see questions about this on Facebook and everything, people trying to find a fixture that's good to use near the ocean. And mainly, I was talking to this individual, and he didn't want to use our copper enhancer nines, our badass area lights, what some people call path lights, because they were made of copper. And he said, look, man, I've been going around. They're not lights I installed, but all these brass fixtures are just shot. I have to replace them. I don't want to use any metal near the coast, near the ocean. Um, and that got me thinking, yeah, I can see that. But then I don't know, right? Nate, you've been in the game much longer. Or Shane, I know you don't deal with the coast either, but why would do we want to use copper near the ocean, Nate? Or is that just going to do the same exact thing that these fixtures are that he's pulling out?
What a great question. So, I call that really harsh environment because, the fixtures, they, depending on where you want to put them across the United States, they live in a harsh environment. And arguably, the ocean is the most harshest environment that they're going to live in. So, one of the big issues, which, as both of you know, and probably maybe the audience knows or not, when I owned Unique Lighting, basically every fixture we made was cast brass, right? So obviously we dealt with, I mean, hundreds of thousands of fixtures that were put on the coast to coast. I made a decision not to do anything cast brass in this new company because brass is typically 85% copper, 15% zinc. And that's a decent ratio, but when everything's made in China, which that's, you don't think there's one cast brass fixture made in the United States, so everything's made in China, and China does what China does. Then they change the recipe and they go 60% copper, 40% zinc, and what happens? It's called zincification, and through salt, right, which obviously salt air, through harsh environment, through conditions, it could be fertilizer, could be bird crapping on them, it could be all of the above, right? The cast brass will crack, cast brass will deteriorate. So I have hundreds of cast brass fixtures in my yard. I'm 30 miles from the coast, so I'm going to say I'm not in a coastal environment, but I have a landscaper that throws fucking fertilizer all over the place, does what he does, and I can't tell you, I hate brass fixtures. They all suck. They look terrible, right? And I owned Unique Lighting, and I'm gonna tell you, they look like crap. They're terrible. So you have to put, you have to clean them all the time. WD-40, transmission fluid. You have to something to bring the luster back. But they fade, they crack, they deteriorate. So copper won't do that. Okay.
Okay.
Copper
But
does.
I don't know. Is there different levels or like degrees of copper? Right? Is there such thing as like a cheap copper fixture versus like good copper for a harsh environment?
Yeah, what a great question, Shane. So, yeah, there are different degrees of copper. So I use pure 99.9% pure copper, and you can use copper that is, I'm going to call it spent copper, to where a lot of times guys will use the shavings from the copper and do different things, and then they try to make things out of spent copper. But yeah, you can definitely get different degrees of copper, right? Depends on the mine, the ore, and all that stuff, because obviously it's extracted from the earth, and you can have, it's like gold, right? You can have 14 karat gold, 12 karat gold, 20 karat gold. So there's degrees of gold, there's degrees of diamonds, and of course there's degrees of copper. So I use 99.9% pure copper. Never heard of 100% pure. I don't know if that's been possible, right? Um, but yeah, that's why I use 99% pure copper on my wire, Shane. So it doesn't internally start degrading because of the impurities inside the copper. Okay.
All right, so let's ask this. So you're saying the copper enhancer 9, the path light, for the guys who aren't familiar with our term of area and lighting, the copper will be fine out there. Obviously, we know no matter where raw copper goes, it's going to change color or change its appearance. But so you're saying that's fine. But if I put in your old brass enhancer 9s, that they wouldn't be fine near the ocean or a harsh environment. Am I understanding you there correctly?
So I'm going to tell you, kind of repeat what I just said. So if you make cast brass proper, which would be 85% copper, 15% zinc, you have a shot that it's going to last a lot longer than you'd with China shit, which is typically 60% copper, 40% zinc. Okay. And I'm going to tell you, I got to believe everybody's using shit brass from China. I just believe that because that's where it all comes from. And I know China, right? No one's going to be able to get on a podcast or tell me that China's making good shit when it's China's shit. You're not Sony, you're not iPhone, you're not Milwaukee that has a QC and the quality and the standard that you can absolutely tell. So yeah, I'm going to tell you that for the most part, it's all going to fail fast and rapidly. And obviously your guy you're talking to is experiencing that. I've seen it myself. I've seen it in my yard. I've seen it on the coast. Yeah, I've seen it. I've lived it.
But copper is
So,
fine. The copper enhancer 9 can go right next to the ocean, and
yep,
I mean, we know it'll just change. It'll patina a different color, whatever, but it
yep.
won't degrade.
Nope. So I call it a living finish. It's going to adapt and change to its environment that it lives in, and that's what I love about the copper. Arizona can turn a deep red, bronzy. In the coast, it could patina, turn green. It can. I mean, I got them in my front yard to my backyard. They look different. So it's
Right.
truly art, living art. I love it. They look beautiful.
I don't know if I told you this. You asked me this, I don't know, a month or so ago, Matt. So I called friend of the channel, Miami Dave, with Miami Landscape Lighting. And Miami Dave, I specifically asked him, and by the way, did you know we're the only ones that call him Miami Dave? But Miami Dave said that he uses the copper enhancer nines quite often in Miami. He said it's good. You can tell it's good, high quality copper, which I didn't really know what that meant. I thought copper was copper. But he uses them all the time in Miami, very harsh environment, and gives his thumbs up of approval.
That's awesome. Yes, Miami Dave is. Well, I know the first year I was there, I was just calling everyone by Miami Dave, and then there was Texas. His name was Dustin, and you blew it by sending another Texas guy there. So, yeah, Miami Dave, shout out. What's up, buddy?
He's not listening.
He will listen. He will listen.
All right, good question. So Nate, just to kind of curveball, it is like, let's say if there's a home on the lake, obviously it's not salt water. You probably don't have or wouldn't consider it a harsh environment, but is there anything to like in particular look out for on like a really nice home on a lake?
So before I answer that, I want to just circle back because, going into being in Minnesota last week, and it didn't really dawn on me. And I'm talking about, obviously, I don't put a lot of, lights in snow. So they get, moderate snow up there. I don't think they get the deep 5 foot, 10 foot snow that a lot of states get. But in talking with him in his harsh environment, because everybody's got their environment they live in, they salt their roads. And I'm like, holy shit, of course, they're going to salt your road. So they don't live near the ocean, but they have the same type of issues with salt, right? The snow starts melting. There's salt going everywhere. There's salt drain off. They get high winds. I was back there. Jesus Christ. You had to have Arctic gear on, right? Went from changing beautiful day. The next day it was raining and pouring and windy. It was like, this sucks, right? And the wind's blowing the water all over the place. So yeah, you don't have to live on the ocean to have, deterioration of your fixtures when you have salt being put on the ground and the roads and the highways and different things. Right.
That's a great point. 'Cause we have that here in New York, and the bottom of our pants, right? When you go out for the day, when you come back home, you can see the bottom of your pants. You can see this little white line creeping up your pants, and it's from the salt on the ground. And when you take your shoes off at the front door and you put them on the mat, that whole mat or that whole carpet just turns like this white ashy color from all the salt. I never even thought about it being harsh.
Minnesota in particular, don't they have purple rain?
I don't know if that's a joke that I don't get.
Right? It was a Prince joke, right? Didn't Prince make the song Purple Rain? And he's from the Twin Cities. Everyone loves Prince. Certainly you had to meet a Prince lover when you were there in Minnesota.
No, I never really liked Prince. So
but he was like the governor of Minnesota.
Yeah, I never knew that.
All right, fun.
Yeah, I never knew that. So conditions, you got to know their conditions where you live, right? Fertilizers, birds, animals, deers, dogs, basketball, kids, right? I mean, everything has environment, everything has harsh environment, so you really got to adapt. But lakes, so, that's really an interesting question. I mean, so lakes, I don't think there's really, probably the only thing that, you really have.
Well, I would say lakes, at least in my area, like it gets super muggy in the summer, and there's a shite ton of bugs, and light attracts bugs. It's like I've had customers with a house in San Antonio and a lake house out, an hour or so north where there's a big lake. They don't want lights because they don't want to attract more bugs.
Well, I would never assume. I guess you can make the connection, water and bugs. I make the connection. I've been all over the United States and bugs are everywhere. Whether there's water or not, seems like there's bugs. So I think bugs are a massive problem, right? Everywhere. So yeah, I mean, everybody knows that it's logical for whatever reason. Bugs are attracted to the light. They like the heat of the light bulb, but they're attracted by light. I mean, we all know that if you all of a sudden you have lights on the inside of your home, or you turn your porch lights on, instantly those lights are a magnet to those bugs. So, and just use common sense now. When you say a porch light's usually at around 6 foot 8 inches tall, so there's always bugs there. Well, if that light was at 10 feet or 12 feet, well, the bugs would be at 10 or 12 feet. So obviously, where you put the light bulb in relationship maybe to a sitting area, height, wherever, yeah, those bugs could be attracted to the lights. So we can, as a lighting guy, we can position them accordingly. Now, the other thing you can do is, I'm a fan of 20, especially on bistro lighting and stuff, but there's a place for 2200 Kelvin, 2300 Kelvin fixtures. And whatever reason, when those lights are more of a yellow or an amber glow, they have less attraction to the bugs, and that's factual. The other thing that we do is we install a lot of Polynesian tiki type torches that are a light coming out of the bottom, which we use an amber light, and then the flame up on top, and you put citronella fluid in it. That really has a tendency to keep bugs away. So that's really nice to be able to do that.
Let me ask
the
you
other
this
thing,
thing. I was talking to somebody, and they have a, what's called about 300 feet in the backyard, but up at the front, 50, 60 feet, let's say, they got a cabana and their hot tub and all this stuff. They have a lot, live in Florida, so lots of bugs and everything. They have no lanai. My question to him was, and I'll ask you, well, if we light the rest of the property where you're not really hanging out, chilling, obviously we want to light that, but would lighting the rest of the property help disperse the bugs like in that situation, or are they still just going to be only in the hangout type area?
I mean, I don't know if there's a rule on bugs. I mean, the bugs get attracted to the lights. So common sense would tell you if there's lights over there, but bugs also get attracted to people, right? They just do for whatever reason, right? Maybe it's activity, maybe it's they're drinking a glass of wine, a cocktail, I don't know. So, that would just be, I would never want to give somebody advice on that because I don't want to give them the wrong advice. So I don't know.
What
I
about
know that.
lighting the part where they don't sit and totally leaving where they sit dark?
Well, again, I mean, that's what I said about putting lights up at high on your back porch. Lights, the bugs are going to go at 12 feet if your light was above your head at 12 feet. So yes, that does apply. But maybe when they're drinking a glass of wine, the bugs are attracted to the wine and not the lights. I don't know that
Sure.
answer. I would just be careful on that. But I did want to share this, Shane, when you brought up the lake. The one thing I was going to mention on docks when I learned up there in Minnesota, or Minneapolis, we're in the suburbs of Minneapolis, that because of the lakes freeze, they have to remove the docks. So we were coming up with a strategy of how do you light the docks, right? Because the docks all get taken out of the water. Well, I never really knew that before.
I've been begging you for this for freaking years.
So, yeah, you know.
Yes.
So, well, then I should have told you the same answer I told them. I would just use my quick disconnects that we use for the Houdinis and for the Oz's and stuff for the battery operated demo kits. I would just use a quick disconnect, right, to where you can unplug and plug in, right. And now it's just a quick disconnect, right? Done.
Wouldn't the
Right.
water? What happens if it raises up and that quick connect is underwater? Wouldn't that, at least create wicking and moisture migration?
You'd unplug the power supply, right? Disconnect it from the home run.
Yeah, you just
not when they go underwater.
No. But the home run, the attachment is not under the, it's out of the water, a part of the boardwalk, part of the whatever the attachment is, right? They have to be attached to land somehow, right? There's an anchoring system somewhere on shore. There's something. So the cable running down, the secondary cable coming from the power supply, let's pretend that it's 30 feet up on shore on a post and something. That's where you disconnect it, right? And then just gather it up like an extension cord and throw it on top of the dock. Okay, so the connection's never in the water.
Okay, so that wouldn't work for the lakes that I'm used to on the East Coast because they go up and down, right? So you put they put their docks out. Some people have floating docks, but the water level changes so much. Sometimes you can literally walk out into the dock and you're about a foot deep in the water, and then other days it's like 2 feet underneath the dock.
Oh, well, why would they have a floating dock?
Well, the floating dock still comes up to the top anyway. You'd still be underwater. And that's what I'm saying is what's that connection piece? that can handle that type of thing. Because I probably imagine that's not only up here that happens.
Well, they make you know, for vehicles, right? They make waterproof connections for vehicles, we'll say, right? That always have, and for boats and all kinds of stuff. So, you know, we have access to those type of connections that could be underwater. I guess I'm still not understanding that why the home run can't the connection can't be at the home run 30 feet up on land, right? And then it just goes up and down as the water raises and lowers. I don't understand why that
Oh,
wouldn't
I hear
work.
you. I guess in my mind, because so they're all 8-foot sections, basically. So they take them out in sections. And in my mind, there would just be a connection on each section, right? So when they come out and they put it back in, they just all plug back into each other. But you're saying somehow secure the wire not to the dock.
Well,
So that
okay,
they
so on the connections, the bridges are connected together every 8 feet. Why couldn't that connection be on the side of the, say, the supporting membrane of the walkway, the bridge, whatever you want to call it? Why couldn't it be kind of on the side? Why does it have to be under the water?
well,
Why
I
can't it
yeah,
be?
maybe I'm just saying sometimes from my experience of having a lake place, sometimes they're just all the docks are just underwater.
They don't float. They're
I don't,
underwater.
well, not all of them float, and some of them float, but if you know, they don't float fast enough, or they get stuck on a boat, you know, boat's tied to it, doesn't let it come up or whatever. There's like
Oh,
floating on
wow.
these large fence posts, right? Just go up and down.
Yeah.
You ought to get in the business of making docks floatable. There you go. Another opportunity. Upselling that.
Barefoot docks coming to you in July 2026.
Wow.
But that's cool. So yeah, let's talk about the dock lighting or lighting on lakes when we're talking about those docks. Now, I know I think you, Nate, and I've talked to a couple other guys who've done underwater lighting in lakes, and they absolutely hate it unless it, you know, because that's I think of this, you know, you think about putting it on the ground of the lake and it shines up, but then it gets covered in like seaweed. I've never done it, so this is real questions. But you were saying, I believe that you like to do it downward facing with the light instead of upward, and you attach it to kind of like the dock arm. Am I understanding that correct? Or do you shine it on top of the water, or are you underneath the water and then you light?
So I think generally, right, we'll call it a boardwalk, right? I don't know what the official name is to go to where you're anchoring the boat, right? To where I typically would call that the dock, where you're docking the boat, and maybe you got a barbecue and lounge chairs, because a lot of these docks have larger patio areas, if you will, attached to the dock. They hang out there. So I'm going to
Yeah.
call that the dock where the boat is. And then walking to the dock is a walkway, a bridge, a boardwalk, a floating boardwalk, whatever, right? just so just so we get terminology straight. So I generally don't like to use, you know, the people make, and I'm in the process of making one, but people make a lot of, I don't know what they call them. They call them like a deck light that has starburst light that comes out 360 degrees. So it kind of minimizes the glare and put the starboard passer on it. So it kind of lights that up. You put it toward the edge.
Like a
Very
marker light.
typical, like a marker light, right? An ID light, a marker light. I don't generally like that at all, because all it does is does one thing, marks the deck a little bit, doesn't provide general illumination. So I generally like going either uplighting a post or downlighting a post. Now I do that depending on what is between the rails. So like if they have like a white rope, and a lot of times it's white, a lot of times it's not, but I like white rope. And imagine that you could uplight the post and obviously light that rope up. And when that rope is white, it looks fucking badass, right? When you're lighting up the whole rope down the walkway now. So that's what I like generally doing, is uplighting when there's the rope, right? But there's generally something there, and generally it's rope. Um, you know, downlighting is also good because it can, you know, obviously symmetrically light the post, and then it, you know, clearly puts cohesion lighting and general lighting onto the walkway. So that's really good. Because it's just one of those things that you want to safely navigate. And a lot of times those docks are wood, and they get messed up, and the slats are uneven. So the better you can see the slats, the better it is. The boards or whatever they use, right? And you know, sometimes they're plastic, right? I don't know on the for whatever reason, it seems like a lot of the plastic docks aren't back east as much as they are over here on the West Coast for whatever reason. I don't know why. Right?
Mm.
Maybe because they freeze and they don't last as long. I don't know. But yeah, there's not a lot of ways to light up the dock. You're going to use an ID marker type light, or you're going to light up the post. Right?
What about
So I
under the
like.
dock though? Like the water.
So what? Okay, so unless you're in the Caribbean, there's really no reason to light up under the water because the water's dirty and mucky and ugly and shit on it, and there's oil on the surface, and there's a bunch of junk down there. So it's never visually pretty, if you will, right? So are you just lighting up the dock so maybe you see some fish? Okay, I've had guys that want to do that. They hopefully want to see some fish. Sometimes they like the glow under the dock. Okay, right? But all you're going to do is get a glow under the dock, and it better be continuous illumination so you're glowing under the whole dock. I mean, I do a lot of when you see in a lot of homes, they'll have fake bridges going across, fake dry stream beds, and fake little things, and there'll be park benches they put on there. So it looks super badass to underlight a little bridge, right?
Yeah.
Same concept by underlighting a dock, right? It can look good. But it's a pain in the ass because whenever you do anything like that, you got to think about how am I going to maintain that? Hey, how do I even install it? How do I maintain it? And then you get a bunch of shit on the lenses. So even though, so now you get debris and all the filth that gets attracted to the lenses underneath the lighting on the dock. So it's a real maintenance problem. So, and I'm always sharing that. And the last thing my guy wants to do, even if the homeowner said, I don't care, I have unlimited money. I don't give a shit if you guys scuba dive on there every week. Think my guy wants to go up there and go in that filth, right? And the water's cold, and he's got to go under there and clean the stuff. No, so it's a maintenance nightmare, you know. So I try to shy away from things like that when I know it's a maintenance nightmare, or a lightmare would be a better word, right? So,
But in
we have.
Florida, right, it's almost a mandatory thing, right? You see it, everybody wants it, and they have pretty water down in Florida, right? And so I guess the question is, but so it sounds like, okay, if you're on the ground of the water coming up, maintenance nightmare. What if you were on, but if you're above the water shining down, and then it's just a glare issue? Yes? Question mark?
So obviously the glare is always a problem when you're above lighting and there's water involved, right? Now the good news is if you're going to put the light on the post, right? The light is only going out 180 degrees, so it's not going backward, right? So it's going to be really minimized as glare, right? So I don't think I've ever worried about glare in that regard because the post is blocking it. All right. And you're only using small wattage lamps, like 1 watt, right? Even though wattage doesn't really play into it because you're still going to get glare from 1 watt bulb. But yeah, so I've never really been concerned about that. All right. Okay.
Got it. Cool.
But yeah, no, you're right there. It's very traditional in the Florida areas. But anyway, you also
Cool.
got a thing on the coast in Florida too. You got to worry about the turtles, right? So you
Yes.
can't use white light, right, because of the turtles. So you got to be concerned about the turtles.
Yeah,
That's
it's
just a
like
color lamp.
2200 or something, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's just a color lamp. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I mean, that's all I know I've asked some genuine questions because I get to talk to guys and everything. So it's cool to hear those answers. Shane, you got anything else to add to this conversation or questions to ask?
No, not really. I mean, 'cause I don't really do docks. We don't really have lakes with docks right up by the home, super close by. So I'm just kind of learning here, listening to you guys chitter chatter.
Yeah, because some of your Glow Geeks guys are gonna definitely have this, and you're gonna need to know the
We're gonna
answer.
have to figure it out one day.
Absolutely. All right. Well,
So
Nate, it was great to hear. Oh, there you go.
well,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna add that the thing that's very appealing about docks, right? And I say it's opportunity, right? Because and I hate asking homeowners, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we light up your dock? You can cruise out there at night. Homeowner might say, I never cruise out there at night, right?
Right.
So now it's a negative. So, but I know for a fact that, right, when I'm lighting up the back of his house, I want to take the homeowner out to that dock where he's got his 50-foot. I don't care how big the boat is, 50 foot, 100 feet, it doesn't matter. But boy, when you can be out on the dock, looking back toward the home, you know, because now you've got distance involved. You see your home in a whole new light. Like, holy fuck, my house looks badass, and that's my estate. That's my home, and you have pride of ownership, and all that comes into play. And now you're like, shit, isn't this a bitchin' hangout spot now? Because I'm able to view my house, right? Because a lot of
Yeah.
times, you know, they don't have their home lit, they don't have their backyard lit. They may have the worst lighting on their dock. Maybe they have no lighting on their dock. The other thing that we've done now, depending, especially if in Florida, I'm going to get back to, you know, now, you know, besides the navigation, the safety aspect of how am I going to light the dock on the boardwalk, it's, you know, usually want an entrance point and an exit point, depending if you're coming or going. So we'll put Polynesians. We'll take our Polynesian, which is a tiki light. We'll take the stem off. I'll mount it on rigid. I'll mount it on rigid nipples. I'll mount it directly to the supporting member of the dock, which is usually 5 or 6 inch round logs, right, or 8 inch round logs. So I'll mount it right to the top. So now I got tiki lights at the entrance and at the exit, and it looks so goddamn badass, right? So we'll make it more of a theme, especially if it has the rope, and then lighting up the rope is badass. And now we get into more maybe traditional, because a lot of times these docks have roofs on them, which is super badass, right? And now you're like, hey, isn't this bitchin' to sit here in the dock, on the dock, creating all these different sub scenes, lighting up that dock portion, and it just, you know, it just gives them more value, right?
Right.
Figure
It
something
definitely gives
out.
them more
So
value.
I must
gives
say, I
them more
love my
value.
lighting. Every time we pull up my driveway or when I walk in my backyard, absolutely love it. It does change the way I view my house, change the way my wife views our house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. It
Mhm.
changes everything.
Yeah, you know, it changes everything. So anyway, so besides lighting the dock, I'm not looking, the dock is easy to light, navigation and all that, but it's all the other things that are going to add value to the homeowner, how he approaches his home, how he views his home, right? Hanging out at his home. I mean, we all know this, you know, guys are guys. We're going to sit there every time he has a party now, he's going to say, let's go grab a cocktail and a cigar. Let's go sit at my dock, right?
Right. For
You
sure.
know, hey, you're further away from the squawking woman, which is always a positive. Go as far away as you can, right? So that's always a bonus, you know. But yeah.
I am going to disagree. I love you, honey.
Oh man.
So,
All right. So with
yeah.
that being said, guys, get out there. Copper is safe for the ocean and harsh environments, at least the copper we use, Enhancer 9. So badass. Obviously, our advanced composite's good. It's been a great chat today. Sorry we couldn't see you, Nate, but you know, definitely going audio was the way to go for you. Glow Daddy, love you, buddy. Hope you have a great rest of the week and you get out there and kill it. Nate, same to you. All right.
All right, bro, dogs.
All right, guys.
Later.
All right,
Peace.
guys. You guys have a good day.